I'm Neil Coyle, I'm the Labour MP for Birmingham and Southwark here in London. This constituency, my constituency, has a strong, vibrant Sierra Leone community, a very big Sierra Leone community with really strong links to the country. That community here in my constituency has been raising concerns about what's going on in Sierra Leone, the attacks, the politically motivated attacks on people, the undermining of Sierra Leone democracy. I care about those issues on behalf of my constituents, and I've asked questions about that in Parliament. Because I've done that, someone in Sierra Leone is alleging I've been paid to do that. There's been no payment, and if you give me your name and address, I'll get my solicitors to get in touch. But your attempts to smear me will not work. I will continue to raise questions about what's going on in Sierra Leone. I will continue to press the UK government to put more pressure on the Sierra Leone authorities to make sure democracy is upheld.
Hello, AP Thomas here. This is a message for Neil Coyle, Honourable Neil Coyle from the British Labour Party. Mr. Coyle, I'm responding to your recent reaction to the supposed killings and arrests and beatings of Sierra Leoneans and undermining of democracy in Sierra Leone. Mr. Coyle, I listened attentively to your comments in the British Parliament, and I also listened to the video that you released today. Mr. Coyle, firstly, before I say anything, I want to acknowledge that you've made genuine effort to express your views based on the information and concerns you've received from your constituents. That's within your right, and that's well in place. And I actually believe that your intents are pure and genuine. However, that doesn't excuse the fact that you fall victim. I believe you fall victim to domestic political scuffle in Sierra Leone. And I believe that you have very little or no understanding of what is happening in Sierra Leone domestically. So I've taken up the initiative to actually explain some of the things to you and encourage you to do some research in the future before commenting on domestic political affairs. But first, before I do that, Mr. Coyle, I want to challenge you. I want to request and demand that you produce the total number of Sierra Leoneans in your constituents who approached you and raised those concerns. Until you do that, if there was a petition, we want to do the total number. We don't need to know the names of the people, but we need to know the total number of Sierra Leoneans who actually approached you and raised those concerns. Until you do that, we cannot validate your reaction. Until you do that, we will question the motive behind your reaction to this issue. And if there were like 10 or 12 people, then we will still question your reaction to the issue in Sierra Leone, because 10-12 people doesn't constitute a lot of people. That is first things first. The second thing, Mr. Coyle, I genuinely believe you've played into the very hands of those that those who've been offending, those who've been undermining democracy in Sierra Leone, those who've been abusing power and authority in Sierra Leone. You've played into their hands. The reason why I say that is that we've just finished an election, Mr. Cole, in March. We held general elections in Sierra Leone, wherein the All People's Congress Party, APC, they lost. The incumbent party lost the government. And we've got a new political party, the Sierra Leone People's Party, in governance. Now, what has happened is that all those who've lost, the APC members who've lost the election, they've come together and connived to cajole you, I believe, to go to the British Parliament and sabotage all the efforts that the new government has put in place to clean up the mess that was created for 11 years by APC. APC messed our country up for 11 years. Sierra Leoneans would be disgusted in your comment. Most of Sierra Leone, majority will be reacting very negatively to your comment, Mr. Coyle. And the reasons why is that APC was in power for nearly 11 years. We had mudslide, we had Ebola. They stole millions and millions of money that were donated by Britain and so many other countries in the West. We had corruption, bribery, abuse of power, authoritative actions, and so on. Have you ever heard the phrase, powers from the above? That was a phrase that every Sierra Leonean in Sierra Leone was accustomed to. And that phrase was coined during the past immediate president, His Excellency Anes Bai Koroma, who during his regime, wherein ministers used to send command to police officers, and those commands were executed without any investigations. People were arrested, people were incarcerated, people were beaten, properties were seized. So many undemocratic actions and illegal actions. The court, the kangaroo court that we had for 10 years, was proven when the sitting vice president was dismissed illegally from office. The Sierra Leone High Court actually assessed that the dismissal was legal. When they went to ECOWAS Court proved that the dismissal was illegal. That is one of many instances, and there were killings everywhere. And I tell you, even up to the day of the elections, in the house of the former Minister of Defense, Paulo Conte, a young man was brutally killed and shot dead. Nothing came out of it. Now, I'm not trying to justify what is happening now because of what has happened in the past. All I'm trying to do is to draw your attention to it so that you're aware of the mess, the level of mess that was created under the APC regime. No one deserves to lose their lives. No one should be punished. I'm a civil activist. Just before people jump into the conclusion that I'm a member of SLPP, I'm not. I'm not a member of any political party in Sierra Leone. I'm a civil activist who was born and raised in Sierra Leone but resides in Australia. And I will continue to advocate for my people irrespective which government is in power or which political party is in governance. So all these things have happened. Not a single Sierra Leonean has heard from you, Honorable Coyle, not a single Sierra Leonean. All of a sudden, you've popped up and raising issues in the British Parliament and making videos of Black Lives, Sierra Leone Lives Matter and so on and so forth. Sierra Leoneans are now asking, where were you for 11 years when people have been massacred? Where were you for 11 years when people were incarcerated? Where were you for 11 years when democracy was abused? Mr. Coyle, I encourage you to read about the domestic politics of Sierra Leone in the future prior to commenting on it. Because there's so much anger, there's so much frustration that Sierra Leoneans have against the former government. The very democracy you're trying to protect is what we are trying to protect. But the manner in which you've addressed this issue has brought about so much, has opened old wounds in the hearts and minds of Sierra Leoneans, has opened so much anger and frustration. I am totally against the person who tried to malign you by saying that you were paid and so on. That was wrong. And whoever did that needs to correct that mistake. However, your critical view of a 5-month-old government that is trying to clean up the mess that's been left behind by their predecessor, it's uncalled for and is out of place. Mr. Coyle, the other thing you did that does not sit well personally with me as an activist is that you mentioned you wore a t-shirt that says Sierra Leone Lives Matter. I believe that that phrase, Black Lives Matter, was coined from the US by the African American. That phrase is so important, and I believe your stance on it, using it to make your point today in your video, has actually devalued that particular phrase. Let me remind you, Mr. Coyle, that phrase was coined in 2013 by black activists in the US who were tired and fed up with systemic racism, systemic oppression of black people, discrimination against black people, who were tired of police brutality. That is how that phrase was coined. You, my friend, you've used that phrase today to address an issue, a domestic political issue that I believe you've got absolutely no idea what was happening. I believe you've been used ignorantly. You don't understand the tenets of issues that are happening in Sierra Leone, and you've used that phrase, Sierra Leone Lives Matter, to respond to the issue without actually understanding it. I believe you've devalued that phrase, Black Lives Matter, by using it in this case, because they're completely different issues. The issue you're commenting on, it's completely different. It's not like people have been killed by law enforcement officers. It's not like people have been discriminately arrested, on democracies being undermined, like you've presented it in your video. That is not the case in Sierra Leone. If you ever wish to discuss domestic politics in Sierra Leone, please, Mr. Coyle, Honorable Coyle, get in touch with me. I'll be more than happy to furnish you. I'll be more than happy to provide you information. But a 5-month-old political party that's trying to clean up the mess of their predecessor should not be held accountable for that. Should be actually recognized and appreciated. So this is my message to you, and I hope and pray that you receive this message. And I hope and pray that you find time to actually understand what is going on before you continue to become victim. You continue as victim of domestic political affairs between the SLPP and the APC, the disgruntled APC and the progressive SLPP that we've seen. Once again, this is Thomas, and I hope you get this message.